Awesome.
You're adorable. Oh.
If I get nervous, just focus me back.
And you'll be great. Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Today's guest is Wendy Sax. She is a plant-based documentary film producer who I met many years ago at the True North Health Center. And she's actually going to be showing a clip from a documentary that she produced and inviting you actually to a free screening of it. The movie you would have to pay for on Amazon Prime, but she is going to give you a link where you can actually watch it for free. I've seen it. It's called Moving Stories. It's very poignant. It's a beautiful film. But before we get into the film, we're going to get to know Wendy a little bit. And please welcome her to the show. It's so nice to see you.
It's lovely to be here, AJ. Thank you so much. And for the opportunity, because this for me came out of the blue to have us screen at Carnegie Hall. So it's really exciting.
Well, you know what they say, Wendy, you know how to get to Carnegie Hall.
Make a movie.
Yeah, well, then practice. Well, we were destined to meet because there was just, they talk about 6 degrees of separation, but when you think about it, there were so many chances that we could have met if we hadn't met at True North. We probably would have met because your college roommate is a friend of mine. And then we would have eventually met anyway because of your connection with Plant Powered Metro when I spoke at we were meant to meet is what I'm saying. So it would have happened one way or the other.
One thing you may not know, AJ, is you were on my radar already in 2006 when you were submitting the most delicious recipes on Dr. Furman's recipe site. And at that point, I was still not a social media kind of person, but it was one of those first websites where I was exploring around and looking at recipes. And I remember loving your recipes. So way back then, I knew you, and much later, of course, I loved that we met in person.
That's fantastic. Well, before we get into the film, which is really, it's a beautiful, I mean, there are some sad parts, I will say, but we can, I mean, it's not like you're going to be crying the whole time. I would say it's poignant more than anything else. Tell us your plant-based story, just how you became plant-based, when, why, and how you got involved with Plant Power Metro, because people need to know about that wonderful organization.
Yes, it's a fantastic organization, and I couldn't be more honored actually to be on the board because it's everything that I love, which is once one has been through any sort of healing journey, and even if you haven't, even if people are doing this for athletic reasons or to improve their strength, because there's such a lack of news or information in the public discourse, education about this becomes really primary. And so my own journey started in 2006. I had been diagnosed with an autoimmune thyroid illness, and I just got very lucky. I was a workaholic. I was working for a not-for-profit for independent filmmakers called the IFP. I was programming new films and kind of working day and night. And I thought I was hyper because of the job. I thought I was stressed out because of the job. I had been through a breakup, so that was just more stress and hyperness. And I didn't really connect it with, I might be having a physical issue. I thought it was all psychological and because of the stress, and just kept barreling through it until I went to my doctor for an annual checkup, and I was diagnosed with my thyroid being thyroiditis, and he sent me to an endocrinologist. And even at that point, I was not whole food plant-based, but I really didn't like the idea of being on medication for the rest of my life. And what he basically said to me is that what he would recommend is a medication that would kill the thyroid, and I'd have to be on medication, and there would be consequences for the rest of my life. And I asked him, are there any alternatives? And he said, well, some endocrinologists might wait like 3 to 6 months to do this, but if you can find something else within the next 3 to 6 months, that's fine. Come back in 3 months, we'll do another blood test, which was the best thing he could have given me because I started hunting around, and about a week later, I found Dr. Fruchtman was not giving a lecture about autoimmune disease, but rather a lecture on cholesterol. And I left work early because my mother had high cholesterol. And I was like, okay, I'll do this for my mom, and maybe I'll figure out my own situation whenever. Anyway, I went there. He was generous to say, does anyone have any questions? And I raised my hand and I said, I've just been diagnosed with this. He said, come back a week later, I'm going to talk all about it. Long story short, he sent me to his paper and his book. At that point, it was Eat to Live. And he said, here's my position paper on autoimmune disease. Quite frankly, I didn't even know that it was an autoimmune disease. And he educated me first and foremost, and then he gave me the plan, which was a bunch of cruciferous vegetables, whole food, plant-based, salt, oil, sugar-free, gluten-free, dairy-free. And I literally stopped one day to the next because it was so urgent for me not to be on medication. And if there was a possibility of turning it around, I would go for it. And what he basically told me in the class was he thought it might take 6 months. And these were critical words for me at the time because I was sick. He said, but you have to stick to it 100%. And quite honestly, I'd had a weight issue and I'd never been able to stick to anything weight-wise, food-wise, 100%. So I was like, oh no, how am I going to do this? And because I was workaholic, I didn't even know how to cook. And I certainly wasn't chopping vegetables. Anyway, that was a Monday night. Tuesday night, Tuesday I quit, I left work. I didn't go to work, sorry. And I read his book. Wednesday, I decided I was going to call in sick to work again. And I would go food shopping, clean out the kitchen, and food shopping, clean out the kitchen, and continue to figure out the recipes. Thursday, I started making soups and salads and figuring out breakfast, oatmeal with berries. And Friday, I went back to work, and then had Saturday and Sunday to revamp and start preparing the whole thing. And by the time I went back for my second blood test, within 6 weeks, I'd lost 27 pounds, and I was no longer had thyroid disease. And when Dr. Fruchtman said this might take 6 months, and it took 6 weeks, honestly, one of my reactions, which is why I'm so active in plant-powered Metro New York, is why has nobody given me this information before? Who knew that food could be so important? By the way, I was a dieter, so I was looking at nutrition since I was in high school. And I had never learned the value of whole food, plant-based eating. And now, after we finished production on Moving Stories, and about a year or two ago, I really got very active. Actually, the organization started 2 years ago, Plant Powered Metro New York, and I'm working with a magnificent founder, Liana Levine-Reisner, and her colleague, Lynn Diamond, and then a whole group of organizers in each of the counties around New York, so Bronx and Brooklyn and Staten Island and Queens and certainly Manhattan. And we organize events to teach about whole food plant-based eating in the rubric of using food as medicine, and trying to educate about the value of a whole food plant-based diet or nutrition, actually lifestyle, sleep, other things to reverse chronic diseases. And so that's a long-winded story. The basic story.
I mean, does Dr. Fruchtman know that it only took you 6 weeks instead of 6 months?
Oh yeah, no, I ended up, believe it or not, afterwards, after I got my blood test, he had an office in Flemington, New Jersey, and I'm a New Yorker. That meant I did not have a car. There was one bus at like 10 o'clock in the morning to Flemington, and one bus at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And it took me about an hour to walk from the bus station to his office. And I made an appointment to see him. And so he, at that point, was still practicing medicine, not just teaching and writing books. And he became my doctor. And so I stayed up with him, and he was actually great motivation for me to keep going. And to this day, I just went skiing with him pre-COVID. Pre his getting COVID, but yes, to this day, he remains super inspiring. But he also turned me on to the whole world, which meant Dr. Clapper was my doctor at True North, and that was also an education. And of course, you and I met at True North with Dr. Goldhammer and Dr. Lyle. And your book Unprocessed was very influential for me, and Vegetables for Breakfast was very influential for me. So all along, I've tried to stay up on the education, and also really most important for me is passing it along. I mean, certainly taking care of my own health, but passing it along to other people. And that's the work of Planned Parenthood Metro New York. And by the way, there are events, and now we have people tuning in from all over the country. And there was somebody from Germany who tuned in the other day to Carol's cooking show. And I know you've had Chef Carol on.
Oh, she's fantastic. Yeah, that's so many wonderful people through the JCC. Before I ask you the next question, I want to thank Susan Johnson for her super chat donation. And what I think is really interesting is, Dr. Goldhammer always talks about how pain and debility is a great motivator. And I think it's so interesting that Dr. Fruchtman said, you got to do 100%. And people don't realize that the diet to reverse the disease is perhaps different than the ones that you maybe just need to avoid it. And I always tell people do the least restrictive plan they can do. But once you have a disease, you can't just pitter patter around and dabble in it. But on the other hand, I think sometimes just doing it 100%, at least for some personality types, is easier than this teasing yourself with a little of this and a little of that. So what I'm saying is you never even had the luxury of getting into the vegan junk food and then transitioning. You just went from standard American to like plant perfect.
I had to, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to reverse something that I really, really, really did not want to be on medication for the rest of my life. That also, I mean, vanity played a role that was also going to play with my weight, and my weight might be up and down and this way and that way. And I just didn't want to be in the control of medication if there was a possibility of doing it non-invasively. So I really respect modern medicine. I have tremendous regard for, Dr. Clapper actually said, when it comes to healing a broken leg, when it comes to things that, the disease state is too far along, I think modern medicine and what allopathic doctors do is absolutely phenomenal. My brother was a doctor, and I have great respect for him, and for all the doctors and their education and what they do. It's just, for me, if there was an opportunity to do it holistically and naturally, and it really, believe it or not, has to do with even what I'll talk about with the movie, that what happened when I went whole food plant-based is my values expanded, and my value on how important the environment is. Automatically, I know you've spoken about this a lot, you're aware of what's happening in the animal world, and the cruelty and the ethical issues with the animals, and then our own really natural, organic connection to plants. I didn't even consider it. So of course, like anybody, I'd been told to eat your fruits and vegetables, but it was the same thing as eat your steak, eat your, have a couple French fries. It was like, oh, French fries taste better than plants, so I'm gonna go where as Lyle would say, I'm gonna go where the pleasure is. Why not? There's the pleasure trap, go for it. Not even that it was that conscious, you just are gravitated there. And so it was really an education, and the education, even that long ago, for the last, many, many, many years, my connection to the earth, to the world, has been a saving grace and grows, it just keeps growing.
That's fantastic. How did you get into filmmaking? That sounds like, I always thought if I wanted to be a filmmaker, documentaries really are one of my favorite genres, tied with comedy. I really do love documentaries.
Again, it was sort of right place, right time. Got very, very, very lucky. I was a theater major in college, theater and English. And let's see, this short story is, my father had moved out to California. We were based in New York, and I decided to spend the summer with him. And then this summer, I became part of a theater group, and it was just going well. And I just thought, okay, I'll stay for 1 year and then I'll go to New York and pursue my dreams of theater in New York. And within that year, unfortunately, my father had a heart attack and he passed away. And on the sad news front, on the happier news front, my brother was getting married in New York in May. And I thought, okay, I'm in Los Angeles and I will stay in LA for 6 months. And then I'll go back to the city to my brother's wedding and stay in the city. Within that 6 months, I got a job in Hollywood, started working as an assistant to an agent, and of course fell in love with, I'd always been in love with movies, but I never thought my direction would be in movies. I always thought it would be theater. And one lucky thing led to another. And quite frankly, I'm going to date myself here, but I was offered a job to do script development work for Christopher Reeve after he had made Superman 4. And I found that I absolutely loved it. I loved storytelling. I loved development. I loved working on scripts. And I really have had a career, very luckily, midwifing stories and helping other people. And then when I moved to New York, I also worked for a company, a production company, Regis Entertainment, and we produced a film called Songcatcher. And then from Songcatcher, I moved to being the artistic director of a not-for-profit IFP and discovered certain films, Mad Hot Ballroom and a film called Frozen River and many, and I started interacting with documentary filmmakers. So the truth is I've never had a formal training in film. I've just luckily moved from job to job to job and jumped into the water and learned to swim.
So you do different genres of documentaries. Like one you were mentioning was about, it was like on physics, or maybe not different genres, it's still documentary, but different. You don't just do like one thing. Any plans for one on plant-based?
I do. I would like very, very much to do a plant-based film. This is where I haven't been so lucky. Every time I come up with an idea, I find somebody else has already done it. And so the challenge is finding something original, a story that has not already been told. And also, it's kind of the issue we had with the film called Particle Fever, that was about the physics, the search for that we showed that at True North actually, but the issue is the story and the characters and having it be sort of new information without getting too didactic and prescriptive. And so it's a balance in finding that. But I have a character in mind and a farm in mind and a title in mind called From the Ground Up, because I recently did a talk with Dr. Ron Weiss, who I think you know, and we were talking about the importance of the soil to the food, the soil to the climate, and the climate, of course, is an issue for our survival. So I think in that realm, maybe the next one, yeah.
Well, I'll promote the heck out of that one. Thank you to Becky Howe for the super chat donation. So how long does it take to make a documentary film?
Oh my gosh, there are many people who do it very quickly. And since technology is becoming more and more accessible and kids are actually learning how to make films probably from first grade on up, which was not the way I came into the business, I think people can make documentaries quickly. In the case of Particle Fever, it took us about 7 years to follow the story, because unlike a fiction film, you don't have a script ahead of time. You are following a story as it's taking place in real life. And in the case of moving stories, I believe, so I want to just clarify also, I was not the sole producer. I worked with a wonderful team, Cornelia Ravenal, Mikael Södersten, and our director, Rob Fruchtman, and the four of us. They started the film in 2014 from an idea that Cornelia had about this dance company, and a woman on the board, Judy Killishan, about the Battery Dance Company, and Jonathan Hollander's company, of course. And I came on board a little bit later. And so that timing was probably 3 or 4 years for that documentary.
Wow. So tell us about how this free screening works, because I've been posting the link in the chat and in
Sure.
the show notes. So how do people do this?
Well, it's really something that was organized by Battery Dance in Carnegie Hall, and I would say that the screening is, it's much more than just a dance film. It's a film about connection, which is also I want to mention the connection with the whole food plant-based eating. But the way the screening works is people can go to the link. The screening is April 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, so 4 p.m. Pacific time. And I think you have the link in the chat or the link in the show notes for sure. And you just have to register. And I will say you can choose to donate to the Battery Dance Company. As everyone knows, with COVID, we've all been hit, particularly the arts in New York have been hit really, really, really hard. And so there is an opportunity to if you're moved, to, even if you're not moved, to donate to the film, but it is a moving film. Donate to the dance company. They're an extraordinary company. I will say, in case people don't get to watch the film, they are a dance company that they're both professional dancers and teachers, and they travel all around the world, and they work with kids in strife, and they offer these kids something that it may be a leap, but I discovered in whole food plant-based eating, and really we all know innately, which is one of the themes of the film, that suffering is born of disconnection. And to get a little bit more, I don't know, I'm going to go deep for a second, but it was really the premise of the film that when connection happens, anything is possible. A friend of mine talks about how creativity is the energy of change. And I think that creativity can be sparked in connection. And the dance company runs a program called Dancing to Connect. And that is the story that we follow. So we follow their work as teachers as they go to India, to Romania, to South Korea, and then we follow the story of a beautiful dancer who was in Iraq, and if he was caught dancing hip hop on the streets of Baghdad, he could have potentially been killed because it was not against the very strict fundamentalist religion that had been his background. And so we explore the world through the eyes of the teacher and the children. And more than anything, I think the film lifts you from a sense of isolation and a sense of loneliness. And and I think that that's true sometimes when we have addictions, be it food addictions. And it's not that I'm trying to make a round hole fit into a square box. It's just that the values of connection are explored in the film. And to your credit, and to Plant Power Metro New York's credit, and to all the doctors who are doing this, like the connection with each other to shift into this world of health versus disease is the most powerful thing there is. So.
Well, I agree. And I don't mind anytime people make a connection to plant-based. So whose idea was moving stories? It's sort of a play on words because the stories are very moving, like emotionally moving. And the people are moving because they're dancing. I love when he did the performance.
Yes.
To Hallelujah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I always think of that was like my favorite. Might have been my favorite moment. But that one girl, I'm not going to give it away, but you know who I mean, the one that got, she was a little annoying, and I'm glad they did kick her out.
Spoiler alert, spoiler alert.
I'm sorry about that, but it was like the whole time it's like, God, she's really annoying me. So, but the part that was sad is that the gentleman that passed away, oops, sorry, I don't want to give away too much, but you got to see it. But I'm very sensitive, and so I just want people to know there's like maybe a couple of sad moments, but overall it's very inspiring and very happy.
Yeah, the program is actually called Voices of Hope, the Carnegie Hall program. By the way, I don't know if I answered, you go to carnegiehall.org. So Thursday night, April 29th, 7 p.m. Eastern, go to carnegiehall.org, and you can just search Moving Stories and you register. You can come for free, of course, it's online. And if you want to contribute to the company's marvelous work, I encourage you all to do that. And how the film started was really Cornelia and her husband Mikael. They were my producing partners on the film. Cornelia had been very familiar already with the work of the Battery Dance Company. And from what I remember, over a fundraiser, possibly one of the board members, Judy Killishan, and had said, oh, this could be an interesting idea. And Cornelia and Mikael were sitting at two different tables, and both of them simultaneously, in whatever conversations they were involved in, had said, oh my God, this is a documentary. And then they came together, the husband and wife, of course, but they came together and each said to the other with excitement, hey, maybe we should do this documentary with our film company. And they have a company called Wilderness Films, and it got born from just that one or two moments separately and then together of inspiration, let's go. And then they brought in Rob Fruchtman, who's a wonderful Sundance Award-winning director. And Rob had Rob previously had done films about dance and really had a sensitivity to the power of being able to move in one's body and the what that means and the beauty also of all that. And so they pitched it to Rob. Rob was a yes. They started, and then I heard about the project. And when I heard the story of the Iraqi dancer, I was like, this has to be made. And I jumped in, and they were very generous in having us all work as a team. And so we launched the rest of it. And we premiered at MoMA, Museum of Modern Art in New York in 2018. And then we traveled with the film all through 2019 and finished up, right around the start. I mean, we finished up probably October 2019, and then COVID hit just a few months later.
Oh,
I'm very happy.
This might be a good time to show the clip if you like, Wendy.
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you. Okay, the issue will be screen share, and let me just see if I can
practice this. We know you'll be able to do it.
I usually put the tech, give somebody else the tech work, but actually Mikael is great at that. Let me just see.
And then on the view that we don't see your desktop.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to it. Hold on.
We'll get to it, I'm sure.
It's tagging me.
Guys, share the link with your friends to sign up, because the movie is on Amazon Prime, but you'd have to pay for it. Here you get it for free.
AJ, give me 1 second.
I'll talk to everybody for a minute. There's no rush. Guys, it's almost the 500th episode. That's going to take place, if no guests cancel, on Cinco de Mayo, which is Wednesday, May 5th. We've got an incredible chef scheduled, but we're also going to be doing a $500 giveaway. But you have to be watching live, and you have to be on YouTube. So those of you that watch on Facebook, please consider coming to YouTube, because you're missing everything. We have this whole community chat that's amazing, and you just don't get it on Facebook. So.
Okay, I think I can do this now. Hang on, I need to find you. Oh,
that's a nice compliment, Queen of Aries. It's good to see you again. I haven't seen you in a while. I don't technically see you, but I know you're here.
Okay, I think I'm ready. Let's just see if I can do this now. There we go. Okay. Here's the trailer for tonight. It's about 3 minutes. I mean, for Thursday night.
They've been through rough times, abuse of children, gender violence.
In Romania, and especially with Roma, the poverty level is becoming higher.
A lot of Americans don't understand the troubles and struggles that our Koreans have.
남은 가족을 위해서 식량을 구하기 위해 They got so much hurt. We need to be kind.
So do you feel respected by the men in your community? तुम लोग को लगता है कि जो हमारे समाज
The people I work with are not only extraordinary dancers, performers, and now choreographers, but also nurturing teachers.
We're going to introduce ourselves by a dance move. Good. Once again.
With dance across the whole universe, it becomes a language that everybody can understand. I don't have to speak dance in English. I don't have to speak dance in Arabic. I don't have to speak dance in Romanian. It becomes the same language.
We're making a piece that you will be performing and you will be creating it.
They come to this project not believing that they can do what we're going to ask them to do. And then by 1 week, they own something. I see more potential in them that they can see in themselves. You can use the chair as part of your movement.
How was your day?
It was really good. My group is really fun.
Today was for me not.
There is a certain way of surviving in these poor areas. It's about surviving every day.
In my 8 years of doing this and traveling to so many countries, usually creativity is really pounded out of children at an early age. There's a lot of punishing, a lot of slapping, a lot of violence.
No, seriously. Tell her I'm not going to warn her again. She's out.
What would you even say dance is? What is it?
말로 표현할 수 없는 걸 춤으로 표현할 수 있고 춤으로 이렇게.
When the music starts, you can be whatever you want to be.
This is an opportunity to show what you guys are capable of doing.
If I make a mistake, what are you going to do?
Connect with each other, not just two separate. Be one together. The goal is very clear for all of us. Building bridges. You bring the world closer together.
Well, the clip was lovely, but it doesn't do the film justice. So people really have to see the whole thing, especially just that one scene to Hallelujah. Well, it's worth the whole movie. And it's true that it is the universal language dance. Music in general is. It can, because the instructors didn't even speak the same language as the people that they were teaching.
Correct. Yeah, they use translators, and the whole thing is, Clement, one of the dancers, says it's really about building bridges and connecting, and in a time where we are all experiencing such disconnection. In fact, a very dear friend of mine did a lecture about the Surgeon General's book. So our current Surgeon General, who also, I think this might interest you, AJ, but in the audience, he also served under Obama. He's now serving under Biden, and he took a tour around America to find out what was really ailing most Americans. And he expected that he would be hearing about chronic diseases and all the different diseases. But what he walked away with is, I've not read the book, by the way, this is from a friend of mine's brilliant lecturer, Nancy Kirchner. She describes that what he walked away with was that the #1 epidemic in America is loneliness. And that it really is a health crisis, and it's a health crisis that needs to be addressed. And it made me think that in England, they have a minister of, I think it's loneliness or something. They actually have a government appointed minister to also handle the disconnection there. But in America, this is even pre-COVID. And I think that it really is part of the health issue, like creating community. And again, it goes back to everything kind of is relating to one another. The community that's created in the plant-powered world, the connection we have to the plants, that to the world itself. And you really don't have to feel lonely when you're connected to the environment you're in, or that's most natural for us. So, and to other people, of course.
That's great. So how long, I noticed though, you're giving everybody so generously the free screening, but it is available on Amazon Prime if people wanted to pay for it for some reason.
Definitely. It's available on Amazon Prime for people in the international community. There is availability on Vimeo. I don't think I sent you the link for Vimeo, but anyone can go onto Amazon Prime, certainly, and just type in Moving Stories. And yeah, and there are people, if there's anyone from educational backgrounds, there are many people who are using it in school programs, and Dancing to Connect still does school programs. Since COVID, they've been doing the programs online. And so people are free, of course, to connect with batterydance.org. And they just did a program in Germany that was hugely successful, all virtually with COVID. And then if they can, and as things are opening up, I think they'll do more and more live programs again. And for us, in terms of schools wanting this, we have a educational distributor by the name of Collective Eye. So they can go to the collectiveeye.com website and get this for schools. And then for the public, it's available on Amazon and on Vimeo.
Here's a great question from JL. If somebody were to go to the Amazon Prime and pay rather than the free screening, does the fee get donated to the nonprofit?
No, I don't believe so. No, it doesn't. The nonprofit really will be grateful for the attention because their work is great, but would be more great. They'd be grateful for a donation. So I think the fee is like $2.99. The way things work, I believe the filmmakers get 3.25 pennies or something, like 1 penny for each time somebody does this. I could be wrong on the numbers. Don't quote me on the numbers, but all I know is that it pretty much goes to the distributor and possibly some to Amazon, and you're splitting $2.99 basically, or $7 or something. It's not a lot.
Right. Monkey Mind says, if you watched the Oscars last night, what was your favorite documentary? I'm so glad that my octopus teacher won.
I am too. I thought that film was just terrific. And I had a dear friend visiting last night, and I did not watch the Oscars. First time probably in 20 years.
Well, did you put it on the DVR so you can watch it today?
I didn't. I just figured I would find a recording, and I would read about it. But no, connection. Speaking of connection, being with my friend who I have not seen in such a long time was that's where I put the value.
Right. Well, that's great. Well, you could have had the Oscars running in the background at the same time. Multitasking. Yeah. Do you have a favorite documentary of all time, either one you produced or just one that you've seen?
Oh my goodness, there's so many fabulous documentaries. I love My Octopus Teacher. I thought that was excellent. I would be hard pressed to do a favorite this year. I would say Liz Garbus's film about Stacey Abrams, I thought was fantastic. Liz Garbus is one of my favorite documentary filmmakers, and she did another film called What Happened to Miss Simone, about Nina Simone, and terrific documentary, really prescient about the Black Lives Matter movement and what's going on in America. I can't say that my favorite, I can't off the top of my head think of a favorite, but her work I like very, very much, and there are many, many other filmmakers whose work I really admire.
How about your favorite in the plant-based realm?
Well, I will say, and partly because of David Goldman at True North, but Game Changers, I thought was just terrific, and I like that it was also focused on men, because it kind of we have a bit of a reputation that a lot of women participate, and this showed the relevancy for a human body, not just a man, or what that I like that it was about athletes and about performance, because on some level, whether one's suffering from a disease or whether one is healthy, I think the drive to grow and the drive to improve ourselves is a very human drive, and it can be addressed in this lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, I love documentaries often because they have a call to action, and then they get people thinking, like, Forks Over Knives, we have to give them credit because they really opened the door for, I mean, if there was anything plant-based before Forks Over Knives, I sure wasn't aware of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I do have some favorites. Forks Over Knives, of course, is the classic. And I know my favorite moment is when a current doctor will put on his prescription pad. They do this at the Barnard Medical Center. Neil Barnard, oh my gosh, another real mentor of mine. And actually, I'm in his book, Hormone, The Body in Balance.
Body in Balance.
The Body in Balance, terrific book. Anyway, Dr. Barnard, I know, writes, or at the Barnard Center, Dr. Loomis will watch Forks Over Knives, download the Forks Over Knives, and then they'll go on with the medications, or maybe not. But let's see, the films I've liked that have been poignant. I thought, they all have a Cowspiracy, I thought was very moving. The recent films, anything right now linking this way of thinking the environment. There's a film that's not necessarily whole food plant-based, but it's a wonderful film about our whole ecosystem called Big Little Farm. It was a commercial film. It did very, very well, documentary, but it did very well. And I thought that was a terrific film because it really showed, oh my God, fantastic fungi. Again, it's not a plant-based film, but that film about mushrooms, and you and I and people in this world know the value of mushrooms. That film, I thought, really looked at nature rather than we think of nature like, we have to fight COVID or we have to fight. It's the Darwinian model. It looked at how nature cooperates rather than competes with one another. So if you think of nature as cooperative, and again, I'm going to link this to how we eat, we are in cooperation with the earth, with what the earth gives us as food. And there's this symbiotic relationship, and anyone who's talking about the microbiome talks a lot about how the bacteria in our gut microbiome is very connected, is 100% connected to the bacteria in the soil. And so, yeah, some of those films I had thought were terrific. And yeah.
What has been, if you know this, maybe you don't, the most successful or most seen documentary ever?
I don't. There was a film that was made way back about the civil rights movement called I Am the Prize that I know was probably, it was very huge. I mean, Michael Moore's documentaries have certainly made the most money of any documentary. He's kind of in a category of his own because he's gotten commercial distribution in movie theaters. It's rare that a documentary gets that worldwide kind of attention.
Wouldn't it be great if he went vegan?
I
mean, he knows Victoria Moran and he endorsed her book. That would be amazing.
I love Victoria, and yeah, it would be quite something if.
Well, you're in New York. Do you guys get to hang out when there's not a pandemic?
With Victoria? I have seen her a couple of times. Actually, we bumped into each other in the ladies' room at the screening of The Game Changers. And we're in touch, yeah, through time. And she does a lot with, actually, Liana studied with her at her vegan academy. And she's just lovely. Yeah, from time to time, we get to see each other.
Absolutely. Dina says, are you working with fine artists to help with creative outlets? I'd love to connect with you.
I'm happy to connect, and no, I have not really worked with fine artists. Laurel, your friend and mine, is a fine artist, but other than sharing gossip and other kinds of things friends do, I haven't really worked with fine artists. And in terms of creativity, I don't necessarily, there are like creativity coaches, and I actually do a wonderful thing to keep my own creativity sparked, which is I participate in an improv group. And so Wednesday nights, particularly during COVID, have been like a highlight of my week because it keeps the ideas flowing. And actually it was my teacher, Jude Trader-Wolf, who had said that the creativity is the energy of change. And so, I think that was valuable. So her work is at lifestage.com, I think, Jude Trader-Wolf, and she does a lot with enhancing creativity.
Yeah, I love improv. I've been taking it since the pandemic began, sometimes up to 4 times a week. And it's just it's my favorite. Kathleen wants to know what your next project is.
Thank you for asking. I will tell you, I'm right now very devoted to the volunteer work I'm doing at Planned Parenthood Metro New York, because on some level I can't think of anything more meaningful. And I'm hoping that we might move into some more advocacy work with this, because it's one thing for each of us to change, and that's very, very, very important. But I also think that if systems don't change sort of from the top down, and us from the bottom up, then the whole thing may not make a change quick enough to actually avert some of the climate crisis. So I'm working volunteer-wise in that, and film-wise, I do think the next film is going to be in this realm, somewhere doctors turning chefs and chefs turning doctors, and the soil. And there's a book I read, this woman whose name I don't remember, so anyway, she said in terms of climate, we have air, water, earth, and each other. And that's been true from the time of man, the dawn of man, to now. And I do think we need to really focus on that piece, which is each other. And that's also what Moving Stories is about, and come together and build those bridges. And I know it's a very idealistic, romantic view of the world, but it does need to happen. This wholeness, this coming together, this connection needs to happen if we're going to avert the climate issues. And so my next project, film-wise, is probably in that realm, 99% sure in that realm. And working with Planned Parenthood Metro New York, and also having this film about connection at my back, I feel like the winds are in the sail to move forward.
That's great. Sometimes I've been to like documentary screenings, and they have either the producers or the cast there like doing Q&As. Have you ever done that with any of your projects?
Yeah, we've all done them. And in fact, we were in many, many screenings together. The 4 of us, Cornelia Ravenal, Mikael Södersten, Rob Fruchtman, myself, and the dancers, and Jonathan Hollander. I realize we've done this whole talk and I haven't spoken about Jonathan. It's Jonathan's Battery Dance Company. Oh my gosh. And Imad, who's the VP of the company. And we've all done screenings, and the dancers, all of the dancers you see in the film. So yes, and for the Carnegie Hall event, sadly, Cornelia and Mikael could not be there that night, but Rob Fruchtman and I will do the Q&A along with Jonathan Hollander and Imad Salem from the Battery Dance Company. And they're extraordinary to hear their story. I mean, we made a movie about their story, so their story is really worthwhile listening to, I think.
Great. Okay, I'm trying to get people the link to register. They're saying I'm giving them the wrong link, that it's the paid link. So let me try to get this one correct.
You could also go to carnegiehall.org, and they might be asked on that link to they might be asked to contribute, but there should be an option to just go online for free, as far as I'm aware.
I might have been giving the wrong link. So I've got one that talks about 7 p.m. that I'm pretty sure is the correct one. So guys, please click that and see if that is correct. Are you in touch with any of the dancers or any of the children in the documentary?
The dance company, Battery Dance Company, absolutely. They get messages all the time from the kids. Of course, these kids are growing up. And so they're in touch with the kids, and the kids often feel, it's a moment of inspiration for these kids. It's like that spark of connection that happens, and they have aspiration, and they often do stay in touch with the dancers and with Battery Dance, and with Jonathan, who's very generous with his time, with them. I'm in touch with a couple of the dancers. I don't know if Cornelia and Mikael and Robert have stayed in touch with them, but I'm in touch with Clement, and yeah, I think Rob's in touch maybe also. I'm not entirely sure.
Wendy, can people only watch it for free if they're in the United States?
I don't know.
Because somebody in the UK is asking. I would suggest they click the link and see what it does.
Yes, I would agree with that completely. Yeah.
All right. Doris says, I love Wendy's story of healing. I admire her for finding Dr. Furman and following his dietary advice. Yeah. How lucky you were.
Yeah. The interesting thing is it could have been an afternoon that I just would have decided to stay at work, which I often did till 9 or 10 or 2 o'clock in the morning, but that's not a good thing. My mother was sick or was worried. She was so worried about her cholesterol. And it's weird because had it just been like, oh, general medical conditions, I may or may not have gone, but I was really concerned about her. And that's what got me there or out of work. Like it was because I'm bringing this up because I was not paying attention to myself. And one of the things I think is very common is that we put self-care aside. I do. I don't know about others, but my own self-care was kind of put aside because I thought other things were more important. So if there's anything that I've learned is as I am taking a little bit better care of my health, oddly enough, I'm taking better care of everything around me too, which is that connection piece. And
Right.
yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. There were people that said they could register for free in Canada. So, and that's what Annette said. So yeah, wherever you are, try. The worst that can happen is it isn't, but you never know. You know, Wendy, like I know that on certain documentaries like Game Changers or even Forks Over Knives, people that worked on the film, like editors, after seeing the content, they went plant-based. But since your documentaries so far haven't been about plant-based, but have you ever been able to either influence or introduce people that you work with to this way of eating?
Yes, so I've been able, I work formally or volunteer wise with Planned Parenthood Metro New York, and I am a mentor for the people who've already signed up and say, woohoo, I'm interested. But let's see, in terms of people I've worked with, I don't think, you know what, AJ, I think people don't necessarily want to hear about it, but they get curious if we are eating or dining together, and the people who are interested sort of come forward, and the people who are not, oh, wait a minute, Cornelia, my colleague, of course. Cornelia came to True North with me, and I have no idea if she's stuck to whole food plant-based, but for a little while I know she and her husband were both adding a lot more fruits and vegetables, but I don't know. Sometimes I follow Dr. Clapper's adage, like just do it, just be it. And then the people who are interested come to me rather than trying to convince other people.
Yeah. That's great. Well, you know what? Even though I saw the film, maybe I'll join in on Thursday night just to solidarity with other people. It might be really fun to see it again.
Well, Rob and I will be there. Jonathan Hollander and Imad will be there. They are so really worthwhile meeting and talking to. They're extraordinary human beings doing international work all over the world. Of course, international all over the world.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm nervous, so I'm babbling.
No, that's just funny.
And Cornelia and Mikael will be there in spirit. They've assured me.
Yeah.
So
here's a fun question from Monkey Mind. What's your favorite vegan meal, and what's your favorite New York vegan restaurant?
Oh my gosh. I would say I'm a curry lover, and so I can pretty much eat chana masala or red lentil curry, or I like the flavors. I know that at True North, they don't do as much flavor as I tend to like, but anything really that has curry in it, even the tofu scramble, I'll add curry. So that's my favorite. And favorite vegan restaurant in New York, you know, gosh, with COVID, I haven't gone out to restaurants at all. I know that New York right now, they do outdoor dining, and they have been buzzing with all these new vegan restaurants. What I find interesting is a lot of the restaurateurs and chefs are going vegan for the climate crisis reason, not necessarily for their own health. Some cases. Maybe my favorite is the first nutritarian restaurant that happens to be in Aspen, Colorado, with Chef Martin Oswald, called Pyramid Bistro. And he just opened a second one out there, but I know that's not convenient to New York City.
Wendy, do you know him? Because I've tried to contact him on social media and he never responds. I'd love to have him on the show.
I could, I don't know him well personally. I mean, I just was there, but I could send you to somebody who could reach out to him. I don't have his a direct thing, but I also know that he's been so crazed with the opening of the second restaurant, and then the difficulties of COVID, of course, with any restaurant. So, but I'm sorry, I don't really have a favorite vegan restaurant in New York because I don't tend to go.
Right. Well, if you are a curry lover, have you tried California balsamic curry
I
vinegar?
love it. I love it.
Good. Well, then when you get your 2 free bottles for being on the show, you can pick both as curry.
I have been known to do things like that. Yeah, no, I love their balsamic vinegar. I think they're awesome.
Great. Well, gosh, this is great. And thank you so much. I hope everyone will take you up on the offer. I mean, it's free. Can't get any better than that. And I think thank you for your work. And I thank you for being vegan and for your passion and your compassion. And I love working with you on Plant Powered Metro.
Thank you, AJ. It's always a delight to have you. I know you'll be back with the JCC and Plant Powered Metro in New York soon, and it's just absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, we hope we got to get people. They don't have to live in New York to be involved with Plant Powered Metro, right?
You just go to www.plantpoweredmetrony.org, and then you will see our movement, our events and classes, virtual events, and you can really tune in from anywhere. And as I said, a friend of mine from Germany tuned in, and at one point I think we had somebody randomly from the UK. And so really you can, please come, please join us. The classes are fun. We have something with the JCC on mindfulness eating, I believe on May 5th. And May 4th, we're having Columbus Batiste, who's in your neighborhood, speaking, and the mindfulness classes, I think, might be 2 consecutive Wednesdays. Anyway, there's a lot going on. We're going to do a men's health focus in June. There's a lot we're doing, and it's just a fantastic organization and growing.
It really is. That is fantastic. Thank you. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow when my guest is Bill Tara, and he's going to be talking about how to eat right to save the planet. And that's what you're doing, Wendy. You're saving the planet.
With a lot of help from a lot of other people.
Thanks. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.